The council chamber was massive. It floated in the void of space, a structure built by 47 different alien species working together. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to witness something that rarely happened, a formal declaration of war. Yunwu stood alone in the center of the circular room. He was the only human present. Around him, in seats that rose up like an amphitheater, sat aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed oxygen, others required special suits. But all of them were watching him. The Vraxian war marshal rose from his seat. He was nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark purple armor that seemed to absorb light. His species had conquered over 2,000 star systems. They were known across the galaxy as warriors, as conquerors, as an empire that never lost. Human. The war marshal's voice boomed through the chamber. Translation devices made sure everyone understood his words. Your species has expanded into territories claimed by the Vraxian Empire. You have ignored our warnings. You have built colonies on 12 worlds that belong to us. Hyunwoo adjusted his simple gray suit. He looked calm, almost bored. Those worlds were empty when we arrived, he said. They were empty because we cleansed them of previous inhabitants, the war marshal replied. Several alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They are ours by right of conquest. You will evacuate those worlds within 30 standard days. And if we don't? Hyunwoo asked. The war marshal's expression changed. His species didn't smile, but this was close. Then the Vraxian Empire will consider itself at war with humanity. We will take those worlds by force. We will destroy your ships, your stations, and if necessary, your homeworld. The chamber went silent. War was rare in the modern galaxy. Most species negotiated, traded, and compromised. The Vraxians were different. They believed in strength above all else. Hyunwoo reached into his pocket. Several security officers tensed, hands moving toward weapons. He pulled out a small data pad and looked at it for a moment. I have a question, he said finally. The war marshal waited. Which war are you declaring? Because I need to check if we're already busy with another one. Several aliens in the chamber made sounds of confusion. The war marshal's translator flickered as if struggling to process what it had heard. There is no other war, the war marshal said slowly. This is the only war. Oh, good, Hyunwoo said. He put the datapad back in his pocket. That simplifies things. Well, war marshal, I'll need to take this back to Earth and discuss it with my government. We'll get back to you on that. Get back to me? The war marshal's voice rose. This is not a negotiation, human. This is a declaration of war. Right, I understand, Hyunwoo nodded. And we'll definitely respond to that. It's just that we need to, have some meetings about it. Fill out the proper forms. You understand how bureaucracy works, I'm sure. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens spoke to each other in dozens of languages, their translators creating a chaos of overlapping voices. The war marshal stood frozen, apparently unable to process what was happening. This is an insult, he finally said. You mock the Vraxian Empire. Hyunwoo looked genuinely surprised. Mock you? No, not at all. I'm just explaining our process. We have procedures for this sort of thing. Can't just rush into a response without proper authorization. Imagine the paperwork problems that would cause. The council's speaker, an elderly alien with 6 eyes, called for order. When the chamber quieted, he turned to Hyunwoo. Ambassador, the speaker said carefully, do you understand what a declaration of war means? Of course, Hyunwoo replied. It means the Vraxian Empire is formally announcing hostile intentions toward humanity. We take that very seriously. That's why we need to follow proper channels before responding. The speaker looked at the war marshal, then back at Hyunwoo. He had been mediating galactic disputes for 300 years, but he had never encountered anything like this. How long will your response take? The speaker asked. Hyunwoo thought for a moment. Hard to say. Could be a few weeks. Maybe a month. Depends on how quickly we can schedule the meetings. You know how it is. The war marshal's armor plates rattled with rage. Unacceptable. We demand an immediate response. Well, that's going to be difficult, Hyunwoo said. But I'll make sure to mark it as urgent in the system. That usually speeds things up. Across the galaxy, aboard the deep space vessel Wandering Star, Captain Dae-jung received the transmission from the council chamber. He sat in his command chair watching Hyunwoo's performance with a slight smile. He's really committing to this, said his first officer, a woman named Bora. He always does, Dai Jung replied. That's why they sent him. Most ambassadors would have panicked. But Hyunwoo, he makes bureaucracy into an art form. Do you think it'll work? It's already working. Look at the Vraxian. He's completely confused. They expected fear or anger. They got paperwork. Bora pulled up tactical displays. Our intelligence says they're mobilizing their 7th fleet. 3,000 warships heading toward New Busan colony. How long until they arrive? 11 days. Daejung nodded slowly. More than enough time. Send the signal to Governor Taeyang. Tell him to start preparations. Which preparations, sir? The fun kind. Back in the council chamber, the war marshal had regained some composure. He activated a holographic display that showed the Vraxian 7th fleet. Thousands of warships, each one larger than most space stations. Since humanity cannot provide an immediate response, he said coldly, we will provide motivation. This fleet is now moving toward your colony called New Busan. When we arrive, we will give the colonists one final chance to evacuate. If they refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to those who ignore Vraxian warnings. Hyunwoo looked at the display. He didn't seem impressed or worried. That's certainly a lot of ships, he observed. Must be expensive to operate that many vessels at once. Fuel costs alone must be significant. The war marshal stared at him. You see an armada coming to destroy your colony and you worry about fuel costs? Someone has to think about the economics, Hyunwoo said. But anyway, I appreciate you giving us advance notice. That's very considerate. I'll make sure Governor Taeyang knows you're coming. He'll want to prepare. Prepare to evacuate or prepare to die, the war marshal said. Probably the first one, Hyunwoo agreed. Or maybe both. We'll see how he feels about it. The council chamber fell silent again. The speaker looked between the human ambassador and the Vraxian war marshal, trying to understand what was happening. Ambassador Hyunwoo, the speaker said carefully, your colony is about to be attacked by one of the largest military forces in the galaxy. Do you understand the gravity of this situation? Absolutely, Hyunwoo said. Very grave. Very serious. I'll make sure everyone knows that. Thanks for your concern. He looked around the chamber. Now, if there's nothing else, I should probably head back to Earth and start those meetings I mentioned. Long flight ahead. He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at the war marshal. Oh, one more thing. What's your name? For the reports, you understand. Need to fill in all the proper fields. The war marshal's expression would have killed a lesser being. I am Krevtal, Supreme Commander of the Vraxian military forces, Conqueror of the Kelmar systems, Destroyer of the Thalax Resistance. That's quite a title, Hyunwoo said, pulling out his data pad and typing. How do you spell Kelmar? Is that with a K or a C? No one answered. Hyunwoo shrugged and put the pad away. I'll figure it out later. Have a good day, everyone. He walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of confused aliens and one extremely angry Vraxian war marshal. As the door closed behind him, Hyunwoo allowed himself a small smile. The performance had gone exactly as planned. Now the real work would begin. Behind him, War Marshal Krevtal activated his communication systems and gave a single order to the 7th Fleet. Make an example of New Busan. Show the galaxy what happens to those who mock the Vraxian Empire. The war had officially begun. What no one in that chamber realized was that humanity had been preparing for this moment, not with weapons or shields, but with something far more dangerous, a complete refusal to play by anyone else's rules. The Vraxian 7th Fleet moved through space like a dark cloud, 3,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. War Marshal Krevtal had given them simple orders. Arrive at New Busan, demand surrender, and if refused, reduce the colony to dust. Fleet Commander Zalmoth studied the approaching planet from his flagship's command deck. He was a veteran of 43 military campaigns. He had seen enemies flee in terror, fight with desperate courage, and attempt clever ambushes. He had seen every possible response to overwhelming force. What he saw now made no sense whatsoever. Commander, his tactical officer said, confusion clear in his voice. The colony is launching ships. Battle formations? Zalmoth asked. No, sir. They appear to be. I'm not sure what they're doing. Zalmoth pulled up the visual feed. Dozens of small ships were leaving New Busan's orbital stations. But they weren't military vessels. They looked like civilian transports, cargo haulers, even what appeared to be luxury yachts, and they were moving directly toward the Vraxian fleet. Are they surrendering? Another officer asked. They're not broadcasting surrender signals, the communications officer reported. They're broadcasting. Music? Music? Yes, sir. Multiple frequencies. It appears to be some sort of human celebration music. Zalmoth accessed the audio feed. Loud rhythmic sounds filled his helmet. He had studied human music before. This was what they called electronic dance music. It was typically played at parties and festivals. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface, the communications officer said. It's from the colonial governor. Put it through. A human male appeared on the main screen. He was smiling, wearing what looked like casual clothing rather than any kind of uniform or military gear. Hello there, the human said cheerfully. I'm Tae Yang, governor of New Busan Colony. Welcome to our system. You picked a great time to visit. We're having a festival. Zalmoth stared at the screen. You are aware that we are here to conquer your colony? Oh, right, yes. Ambassador Hyunwoo mentioned something about that. Here's the thing, though. We've already paid for all the festival arrangements. Caterers, musicians, fireworks, the whole setup. It cost us quite a bit. Would you mind terribly postponing the invasion until after the weekend? Say Monday? That would really help us out. The command deck went silent. Every Vraxian officer turned to look at their commander. You want us to postpone your conquest? Zalmoth asked slowly, making sure his translator was working correctly. If it's not too much trouble, Tae Yang said. We understand you're very busy with your empire and everything. But we'd really hate to waste all this money. Plus, you're welcome to join the festival if you want. We've got enough food for everyone. Do Vraxians eat? I probably should have looked that up. Zalmoth felt something he had never experienced in his military career. Complete uncertainty. His training had covered every combat scenario, every tactical situation, every possible enemy response. But this was not in any manual. This is not a negotiation, he said firmly. You will evacuate your colony immediately or face destruction. Sure, we'll definitely evacuate, Tae Yang agreed easily. Right after the festival. Like I said, maybe Monday? We could do Tuesday if Monday doesn't work for your schedule. The civilian ships were getting closer. Zalmoth's weapons officers were watching him, waiting for orders to fire. But the ships weren't attacking. They weren't even armed. They were just flying around his fleet, broadcasting party music. One ship, a small transport painted in bright colors, pulled up alongside his flagship. A human face appeared on his screen. It was an older male wearing an apron. Hi there, the human said. I'm Sunho. I run a restaurant down on the planet. Since you folks came all this way, I thought I'd bring up some samples. You guys like spicy food? I make this amazing kimchi stew that I think you'd enjoy. Are you insane? Zalmoth demanded. We are here to destroy your colony. Right, but that's no reason to be rude, Sunho replied. Besides, you haven't tried my cooking yet. Might change your mind about the whole destruction thing. At least let me know if you have any dietary restrictions, allergies, religious requirements. Another transmission came in. This one was from a human female, Fleet Commander Zalmoth. Hi, I'm Minseo. I'm coordinating the colony's defense. Well, I say defense, but really I'm just making sure everyone's having a good time at the festival. Anyway, I wanted to ask, are your ships going to stay in that formation? Because if you are, you're blocking the fireworks trajectory. We've got a really great show planned for tonight, and it would be a shame if your fleet was in the way. Zalmoth closed all the communication channels. He looked at his officers. They looked back at him, equally confused. Sir? His tactical officer said carefully. What are your orders? It was a good question. How do you attack an enemy that's throwing a party? How do you terrify people who are trying to give you food? His weapons were ready. His fleet was in position, but something felt wrong about this entire situation. Fire a warning shot, he ordered finally. Target the empty space near those civilian vessels. Show them we're serious. The flagship's main cannon fired. A brilliant beam of energy shot across space, passing close enough to one of the human ships that it should have sent them fleeing in terror. Instead, the human ship pilot came on the communication channel. Hey, was that a weapons test? Pretty impressive. But could you maybe not do that during the festival? There's a noise ordinance. We don't want to disturb the neighbors. Not that we have any neighbors out here, but still it's the principle of the thing. Another human transmission came in. This is the New Busan Colony Noise Complaint Department. We've received a report about excessive weapons fire. Could you please keep it down? Thank you for your cooperation. Zalmoth realized his mandibles were hanging open. He closed them and tried to think. This was psychological warfare. It had to be. The humans were trying to confuse him, to make him hesitate. But why? What did they gain from this absurd behavior? Sir, his sensor officer called out. I'm detecting multiple ships leaving the planet. Large transports heading away from our position. Finally, something that made sense. They're evacuating. Prepare to pursue. Sir, those ships are heading in different directions, and they're not broadcasting distress signals or emergency codes. They're moving at standard commercial speeds. Zalmoth pulled up the sensor data. The officer was right. These weren't panicked evacuation ships. They were just leaving, calmly and efficiently, like they were making scheduled departures. His communication officer spoke up again. Sir, Governor Tae-Yang is calling again. The governor's face reappeared on screen, still smiling. Hey, sorry to bother you again. I forgot to ask, how long do you need the planet for? It's just that some of our residents have vacation plans next month, and they're wondering if they should cancel or not. Do you have like a timeline for the conquest? Even a rough estimate would help. That was when Zalmoth realized something was very wrong. He pulled up a tactical overview of the entire system. While his fleet had been distracted by festival ships and food offers and noise complaints, multiple large transports had left New Busan. They weren't fleeing randomly. They were moving in coordinated patterns toward the system's edge, where faster-than-light jumps were possible. Track those transports, he ordered. Where are they going? His officers worked quickly. After a moment, the tactical officer looked up with an expression of disbelief. Sir, those aren't evacuation ships. They're colony transports. According to their flight paths, they're heading towards 6 other human colonies in nearby systems. It looks like they're relocating entire populations. Understanding hit Zalmoth like a physical blow. The festival, the music, the absurd conversations, all of it had been a distraction. While his fleet sat here, confused and uncertain, the humans had been quietly moving their people from other colonies to safety, not from New Busan, from everywhere else. New Busan had never been the target. It had been the bait. He opened a channel to all the civilian ships still flying around his fleet. This is Fleet Commander Zalmoth. Your deception has been noted. We are not amused. Tae-Yang's face appeared again, and this time his smile was different. Still friendly, but with something else behind it. Something calculating. Deception. Commander, we've been completely honest with you. We are having a festival. You're more than welcome to join us. As for those other ships, well, you said you were here to conquer New Busan. You didn't say anything about the other colonies. We figured we'd help those folks move while you were busy with us. Seemed efficient. You have made fools of the Vraxian Empire, Zalmoth said coldly. Not at all, Tae-Yang replied. You wanted to make an example of us, and you can still do that. New Busan is right here. We're not going anywhere. Well, most of us aren't. Some people had prior commitments, you understand. But there's still plenty of us here for you to conquer. If you still want to, that is. The festival really is quite nice. Shame to miss it. Zalmoth cut the transmission. He sat in his command chair, feeling decades of military training failing to provide any guidance. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, War Marshal Krevtal is requesting a status report. Of course he was. Zalmoth had to report that the supposedly terrifying War Marshal Krevtal had never known rage like this. The news from New Busan had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. His 7th fleet, 3,000 of the Vraxian Empire's finest warships, had been made to look foolish by humans throwing a party. The Council had laughed. Other species, ones that had feared the Vraxian military for generations, had laughed at them. That would not stand. Assemble the Grand Armada, he ordered his staff. Every available ship. This time we go directly to Earth, no more games. No more colonies. We end this at the source. His advisors shifted nervously. War Marshal, the Grand Armada hasn't been mobilized in over a century. That's 50,000 warships. The cost alone. I don't care about cost, Krevtal snarled. I care about the honor of the Empire. Humanity has humiliated us. They will learn what happens when you mock the Vraxian military. 3 weeks later, the Grand Armada entered the Sol system. It was the largest military force assembled in modern galactic history. 50,000 warships surrounded Earth like a steel net. Every weapon was armed, every shield at maximum power. Krevtel stood on the command deck of his flagship, staring at the blue and green planet below. "Broadcast our demands," he ordered. Total surrender. Immediate and unconditional. The transmission went out to every communication device on Earth and in orbit around it. The War Marshal's face appeared on billions of screens. "Humans of Earth," his voice echoed through the translation systems. "You have insulted the Vraxian Empire for the last time. We are here with overwhelming force. You cannot win. You cannot escape. Surrender now, or we will reduce your planet to ash." He waited for the response. Fear, panic, desperate pleas for mercy. That was what he expected. What he got instead was a human male in a simple business suit sitting at a desk and looking at a computer screen. "Oh, hello," the human said, glancing up. "Sorry, didn't see you there. I'm Kyung-Soo, Director of Interstellar Responses. That's a new department, actually. We just created it last week. Still figuring out the office space situation. Anyway, how can I help you?" Krevtel's claws scraped against his armrest. "Did you not hear my demands? Surrender or die." "Right, yes, I heard that," Kyung-Soo said, typing something on his computer. "Very clear communication. Excellent diction, by the way. Your translator does good work. Now, about this surrender thing. I'm going to need you to submit that in writing. We've got forms for this sort of request. Let me find the right one." He started clicking through files on his screen. Krevtal watched in disbelief as the human appeared to be searching through bureaucratic documents, while an armada capable of destroying his entire world waited outside. "Here we go," Kyung-Soo said. "Form 2847B, request for planetary surrender. You'll need to fill out sections 1 through 47. Don't worry about section 12. That's only for aquatic species. You're not aquatic, right?" "This is insane," Krevtal said. "We are not filling out forms. We are here with 50,000 warships." "I can see that," Kyung-Soo agreed, glancing at another screen. "Very impressive fleet. Must have taken a lot of organization to coordinate that many ships. I respect good logistics. But the forms are important. We need to keep proper records. Imagine if we just surrendered without the right paperwork. The archive department would be furious." Across Earth, other preparations were underway. Admiral Jiwon stood on the command deck of humanity's flagship, the Seoul Sunrise. Around her, Earth's defense fleet was mobilizing. It was a fraction of the size of the Vraxian Armada, maybe 5,000 ships total. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, "the Vraxians are in attack formation. They could fire at any moment." "Then we should probably do something," Jiwon said calmly. "Begin defensive pattern Alpha." "Sir, pattern Alpha is—" "I know what it is. Execute." The Earth defense fleet began to move. But instead of forming battle lines or defensive walls, the ships started performing what could only be described as elaborate formations. They moved in synchronized patterns, weaving between each other in complex geometric shapes. On the Vraxian flagship, the tactical officer stared at his screen. "Sir, the human fleet is— I don't know what they're doing." Krevtal looked at the tactical display. The human ships were moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. They were spinning, looping, creating formations that were almost artistic rather than military. "Are they performing evasive maneuvers?" he asked. "No, sir. If anything, they're making themselves easier targets. It's like they're dancing." That was exactly what they were doing. Admiral Jiwon had programmed the fleet to move in time with classical music, creating a synchronized space ballet. It served no military purpose whatsoever. It was just beautiful and completely bewildering. "Should we fire on them, sir?" his weapons officer asked. Krevtal hesitated. Every instinct told him to give the order. But something about this situation felt wrong. The humans weren't afraid. They weren't even pretending to fight back properly. What were they planning? His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from Earth, all on different frequencies. Military communications?" "No, sir. They appear to be personal messages. Images with text on them?" Krevtal pulled up the data stream. His screen filled with what humans called memes, pictures of Vraxian warships with humorous captions, images comparing the war marshal to various Earth animals, jokes about the fleet's formation looking like someone trying to parallel park. "They're mocking us," his first officer said quietly. "They're broadcasting mockery on every available channel." More data came in. Earth's internet was flooding with content about the Vraxian invasion. Humans were making jokes, creating art, writing songs. One particularly popular video showed a human comedian doing an impression of a Vraxian warrior, complete with exaggerated voice and clumsy movements. The video had been viewed 3 billion times in the last hour. War Marshal, another officer reported. Something else is broadcasting. It's coming from multiple satellites around Earth. A new screen activated. It showed a documentary, professionally produced and narrated by a calm human voice. Welcome to a brief history of human conflict, the narrator said. In this 47-hour documentary series, we will explore humanity's long and complicated relationship with warfare. 47 hours. The Vraxians were being forced to watch a 47-hour documentary about human history. Turn it off, Krevtal ordered. We've tried, sir. It's broadcasting on frequencies our systems can't block, and it's targeted. Every ship in our fleet is receiving it. The documentary began showing ancient human wars, battles fought with primitive weapons, conflicts over territory, resources, and ideology. It showed humans fighting humans with increasing brutality and efficiency. Across the Vraxian fleet, intelligence officers found themselves watching. Despite orders to ignore it, they couldn't help but pay attention. What they saw disturbed them. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. They had built weapons capable of destroying their entire planet multiple times over. They had fought wars that killed hundreds of millions of their own species. And then they had stopped. Not because they couldn't fight anymore, but because they had learned something that the Vraxians hadn't, that mutual destruction was pointless. On Earth, Director Kyungsu was still talking to War Marshal Krevtal. You know what the interesting thing is? Kyungsu said, leaning back in his chair. We've already been through this. The whole mutually assured destruction thing. We had enough nuclear weapons to end all life on Earth. We had multiple times when we almost used them. But we didn't. You were weak, Krevtal said. Maybe, Kyungsu agreed. Or maybe we were smart enough to realize that winning a war doesn't matter if everyone dies. The thing is, War Marshal, you've never faced an enemy like yourselves. You've conquered primitive species and defeated armies that feared death. But humanity? We've already stared into the abyss of our own extinction and decided not to jump. You cannot defeat 50,000 warships with philosophy, Krevtal said. We're not trying to defeat your ships, Kyungsu replied. We're trying to make you ask yourself why you're here. You want to conquer Earth? Fine, but then what? You'll have a planet full of humans who will spend every single day making your occupation miserable. We're very good at being annoying. It's one of our best skills. Deep in Earth's defense network, Commander Haewon sat in a control center that officially didn't exist. Around her, technicians monitored systems that the Vraxians hadn't detected. Commander, one of her staff said, we're ready to activate the entertainment override system. Not yet, Haewon said. Let them watch the documentary first. Let them think about what they're doing. The system she had helped design was beautifully simple. It didn't attack the Vraxian ships. It didn't damage their weapons or shields. Instead, it hijacked every entertainment system, every personal screen, every communication device on every Vraxian vessel. When activated, it would force every single Vraxian soldier to watch Earth's response, to see humans going about their daily lives, unconcerned about the massive fleet overhead, to watch humans making jokes about the invasion, to experience what it felt like to be treated not as a terrifying threat but as an annoyance. Sir, Haewon's second-in-command asked quietly, do you think this will work? 3 weeks had passed since the Grand Armada arrived at Earth. 3 weeks and not a single shot had been fired. The galaxy was watching. Every species with access to long-range sensors was monitoring what the media had started calling the absurdity conflict. The Galactic News Network ran continuous coverage. Analysis shows debated what humanity was doing. Historians searched records for any similar situation. They found nothing. This had never happened before. On Earth, life continued as normal. Humans went to work, ate meals, watched entertainment, and occasionally looked up at the sky where thousands of alien warships still waited. The initial excitement of an alien fleet had worn off after the first few days. Now it was just part of the background. This drove War Marshal Krevtal to distraction. They're ignoring us, he said to his command staff. An entire planet is simply ignoring the largest military fleet in galactic history. His intelligence officer pulled up reports from across the Vraxian Empire. Sir, we have another problem. Our economy is destabilizing. How is that possible? We haven't even fought a battle yet. That's the problem, sir. The markets expected a quick victory. Instead, we've been sitting here for 3 weeks. Military spending is astronomical. Trade routes are disrupted, and across our empire, people are asking questions. And what kind of questions? Questions about why we can't conquer one planet. Questions about the cost. Questions about whether this war is worth fighting at all. Krevtal pulled up the economic data. The officer was right. The Vraxian currency had dropped 30% in value. 3 minor colonies had formally requested to leave the empire. Riots had broken out on 2 major worlds over war funding. His communication system chimed. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Earth." It was Kyung-Soo again, still sitting at his desk, still looking relaxed and unconcerned. "War Marshal, hello again. Hope you're doing well up there. I wanted to check in about that surrender form. Did you get a chance to fill it out yet? No pressure, just wondering if you need help with any of the sections." "We are not surrendering," Krevtal said through clenched teeth. "You are surrendering. That's how this works." "Right, but I haven't received the properly filled out forms from you, so I can't actually process a surrender on our end. It's a whole thing. Bureaucracy, you know how it is. Though I suppose in your empire you probably just tell people what to do and they do it. That must be nice. But here on Earth we have procedures." Across the galaxy in the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session was taking place. Representatives from 47 species had gathered to discuss the situation. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood before them once again. "This is unprecedented," the council speaker said. "A declared war where no fighting has occurred. A military occupation where nothing is being occupied. Ambassador, what is your government trying to achieve?" "We're not trying to achieve anything," Hyun-woo replied. "We're just responding to the situation in our own way. The Vraxians declared war. We acknowledge that. They brought a fleet. We noticed that too. But war is a mutual activity. If one side doesn't participate, it's not really a war, is it?" A representative from the Kelverite Dominion spoke up. "They were a species known for their logical approach to everything. But your planet is currently surrounded by a hostile fleet. Logic dictates you should either surrender or fight." "That's assuming logic is what we're using," Hyun-woo said. "We're using something else." "What?" "I guess you could call it aggressive indifference." The council chamber fell silent as representatives tried to process that phrase. Another alien, this one from a species called the Orinthians, stood up. "Ambassador, I must admit we've been studying your response carefully. We have a question. Did you plan this strategy in advance, or are you making it up as you go along?" Hyun-woo smiled slightly. "Does it matter?" "For academic purposes, yes. Let's just say we learned from our own history. Humans are very good at 2 things: adapting to situations and refusing to do what others expect. We've had empires rise and fall on Earth. We've seen what works and what doesn't. And one thing we learned is that empires can't survive being laughed at." Back on Earth, Seok-jin was having the best month of his life. His small business had been struggling before the invasion. Now he was making more money than he had ever imagined. "I survived the human response." T-shirts were selling to aliens across the galaxy. He had started with a simple design and modest expectations. But then something unexpected happened. Aliens started buying them not as a joke, as genuine merchandise. Species that had feared the Vraxian Empire for generations were suddenly emboldened by humanity's response. If humans could treat the mighty Vraxian military like an annoying inconvenience, maybe they weren't so terrifying after all. Seok-jin shipped products to 17 different star systems. He had to hire staff to keep up with demand. He was in the process of designing new merchandise: coffee mugs, hats, even stuffed toys that looked like confused Vraxian warriors. His success story was being repeated across Earth. The invasion had accidentally boosted the human economy. Meanwhile, the Vraxian economy continued to collapse. War Marshal Krevtal received reports of 3 more colonies requesting to leave the empire. One of them had specifically cited the Earth situation as their reason. "If the mighty Vraxian military cannot conquer one planet of humans," their statement read, "then perhaps the empire is not as strong as it claims. We wish to seek independence." His second-in-command approached carefully. "War Marshal, there's something else. A situation developing in the fleet." "What kind of situation?" "The troops are, well, sir, they're getting bored. 3 weeks in space with nothing to do. Some of them have been watching human entertainment broadcasts. Others have been reading about Earth culture. There have been discussions in the mess halls. Discussions about what? The officer hesitated. About whether we should just leave, sir. Krevtal stood abruptly. Leave? We came here to conquer. Yes, sir. But the troops are starting to wonder what the point is. We're spending resources, time, and reputation to occupy a planet that doesn't seem to care that we're here. Some of the soldiers are asking why we can't just add Earth to the Empire peacefully, maybe negotiate trade agreements instead. This was mutiny. Or at least it was the beginning of mutiny. Krevtal had led armies for decades, but he had never faced a situation where his own troops were losing the will to fight because the enemy was too boring. A new transmission arrived. This time it wasn't from Kyung-Soo or any government official. It was from a human negotiator named Yunji. War Marshal Krevtal, she said pleasantly. I've been authorized by Earth's government to present you with a peace treaty. I think you'll find it very reasonable. We don't want peace. We want surrender. I understand. But since that doesn't seem to be working out, maybe we could try this instead. She displayed the treaty terms on screen. Krevtal read them with growing disbelief. The treaty stated that the war would officially end with no territory changing hands. Both sides would agree to pretend the war never happened. Earth would issue a formal apology for any emotional distress caused by our lack of cooperation. And both parties would engage in cultural exchange programs. This is insulting, Krevtal said. You're offering us nothing. No territory, no resources, nothing. We're offering you an exit from a situation that's costing your empire billions per day and damaging your reputation across the galaxy, Yunji replied. We're offering you the chance to go home and tell your people that peace was achieved. You can even claim it was your idea if that helps. And if we refuse? If we simply attack? Yunji's expression didn't change. Then you'll destroy Earth, kill 7 billion humans, and become the species that committed genocide because they were embarrassed. How do you think the rest of the galaxy will react to that? How many of your colonies will rebel when they realize their empire murders entire planets over hurt feelings? She was right. Krevtal knew she was right. The situation had become impossible. If he attacked Earth now, the Vraxian Empire would be seen as monsters. If he withdrew without the treaty, they would be seen as weak. The treaty at least gave them some dignity, but the apology, that obviously insincere apology. We refuse to accept a false apology, he said. Oh, that's no problem, Yunji said cheerfully. We can send an even more insincere one if you prefer. Would you like it in writing or as a video message? We could have someone read it in a really sarcastic tone if that helps. Krevtal closed the communication channel. He looked at his command staff. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. Prepare a response to the treaty, he said finally. We will consider their terms. It felt like defeat. Worse than defeat. It felt like losing a war that never actually happened. His communications officer spoke up urgently. Sir, new contact. Multiple ships entering the system. Human reinforcements? No, sir. The signatures match the Kelvarite Dominion. They're broadcasting a war declaration. Against humanity. Krevtal stared at the tactical display. The Kelvarites were another major power, known for their logical warfare and calculated strategies. They had watched the entire situation with Earth. They had studied every move humanity made, and apparently, they thought they could do better. The Kelvarite fleet commander's image appeared on screens across the A. The Kelvarite Dominion prided itself on logic. Every decision was calculated, every action planned, every outcome predicted through mathematical models and strategic analysis. They had studied the Vraxian failure extensively and believed they understood exactly where the Vraxians had gone wrong. The Vraxians had expected fear and received indifference. They had threatened destruction and received mockery. They had brought overwhelming force and been met with festivals and bureaucracy. The Kelvarites would not make the same mistakes. They would be prepared for humanity's absurdist approach. They would remain emotionless, unaffected by mockery or confusion. Logic would prevail where emotion had failed. Commander Telvar of the Kelvarite fleet reviewed the strategic plan one final time. 2,000 warships had entered the Sol system. Not as many as the Vraxian fleet, but the Kelvarites believed in efficiency over excess. 2,000 logical, well-coordinated ships would be more effective than 50,000 confused ones. Broadcast the declaration, Telvar ordered. The message went out on all frequencies. Humanity. We are the Kelvarite Dominion. We have analyzed your psychological tactics. We are immune to confusion, mockery, and absurdist responses. You will surrender within 48 hours, or face logical and systematic destruction. This is not a negotiation. This is mathematics. They waited for humanity's elaborate response. The festivals, the memes, the bureaucratic forms, the documentaries. The Kelverites had prepared countermeasures for everything. What they received was a single-word text message from director Kyung-soo. Okay. Telvar reviewed the message. Just one word. No explanation, no context, no elaborate scheme. Just acknowledgement. This is the trap, Telvar said to his command staff. They want us to think they're being simple. We will not fall for it. Maintain high alert. Watch for any unusual activity. Hours passed. The Kelverite fleet monitored everything. Ship movements, communication patterns, energy signatures. They watched for festivals, for civilian ships approaching them, for anything that matched the patterns from the Vraxian encounter. Nothing happened. Earth continued its normal operations. Ships came and went on regular schedules. Communication traffic was normal. No parties, no mockery, no documentaries about human warfare. Status report, Telvar demanded. All systems normal, Commander. His tactical officer reported. Earth's defense fleet is maintaining standard patrol patterns. No unusual deployments. No suspicious activity. They're planning something, Telvar insisted. Increase surveillance. Monitor all human communication. More hours passed. The Kelverites intercepted millions of human messages. Most were mundane. Work emails, personal conversations, shopping requests. Some mentioned the Kelverite fleet, but only in passing. Oh, there's another alien fleet here. Wonder what they want. That sort of thing, no coordination, no secret plans. Just normal life continuing. On Earth, Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in his office looking exhausted. His assistant, a young woman named Bo-Ra, brought him coffee. The Kelverites are still waiting for us to do something, she said. I know, Hyunwoo replied. That's the problem. They watched what we did to the Vraxians. They prepared for absurdity, so we're giving them normalcy. Let them figure out what that means. What is there a plan? The plan is to not have a plan. Let them analyze that. In the Kelverite flagship, the analysis had been ongoing for 24 hours. The tactical computers had processed every piece of available data about human behavior, Earth's defense capabilities, and potential strategies. The result was frustrating. Insufficient data for meaningful analysis. Human behavior pattern. Inconsistent with all previous observations. Explain, Telvar demanded. The ship's artificial intelligence responded in its flat, logical tone. Previous human encounters involved elaborate misdirection and psychological manipulation. Current behavior shows none of these patterns. Probability of this being a strategy, 67%. Probability of humans genuinely not caring about our presence, 33%. Recommend continued observation. 33% chance they just didn't care. Telvar found that number oddly disturbing. War Marshal Krevtel, still in the Sol system with his fleet, watched the Kelverite situation with grim satisfaction. Finally, someone else was experiencing the frustration of dealing with humans. He opened a communication channel to Commander Telvar. Commander, I recommend you withdraw your fleet. Explain your reasoning, Telvar replied. There is no reasoning. That's the point. Humans don't operate on logic. They don't follow predictable patterns. They do what works in the moment, and when that stops working, they do something else. Your analysis won't help you because there's nothing to analyze. Your failure was due to emotional reaction, Telvar said. We do not have that weakness. My failure was trying to make sense of them, Krevtal replied. You're making the same mistake. You think their simplicity is a strategy. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. That's the trap. You'll spend so much time analyzing that you'll never actually do anything. Telvar closed the channel. The War Marshal was trying to justify his own failure by suggesting the task was impossible. The Kelverites would not fall for such defeatist thinking. Advance the fleet, Telvar ordered. Move into attack position around Earth. Perhaps a more immediate threat will provoke a response. The Kelverite ships moved closer to Earth. Still no unusual activity from the planet. The defense fleet adjusted position but made no aggressive moves. It was like watching a choreographed dance where only one side was moving. Earth's Admiral Ji-Won watched the Kelverite fleet from her command deck. Should we do something? Her tactical officer asked. Like what? Ji-Won replied. They're not attacking. They're just sitting there trying to figure out what we're planning. Let them keep trying, but we're not planning anything. Exactly. That's what makes it so confusing for them. The Kelverites issued another ultimatum. Humanity had 12 hours to surrender. After that, they would begin systematic attacks on military targets. Director Kyung-soo responded with another message. Noted. Thanks for letting us know. Telvar stared at that message for a full minute. Noted, thanks for letting us know. Not even a rejection. Just acknowledgement. Like humanity was filing the information away for future reference, but didn't feel the need to act on it. In the Kelverite command center, the strategic computers were showing something unexpected. The probability calculations were becoming unstable. Too many unknowns, too many possible human strategies, too many ways to interpret their lack of response. Commander, the AI reported, analytical paradox detected. If humans are not planning, then our analysis of their planning is meaningless. If they are planning, then our analysis of their lack of planning is incorrect. Current probability models cannot resolve this contradiction, so we have no idea what they're doing, Telvar said slowly. Correct. This is unprecedented in Kelverite military history. 48 hours after entering the system, the Kelverite Dominion had not fired a single shot. Their fleet sat in perfect formation, weapons ready, shields charged, completely paralyzed by their inability to understand what humanity was doing or not doing. The psychological effect was spreading through the Kelverite ranks. Soldiers who had been trained to analyze and react were finding nothing to analyze. Every sensor reading was normal. Every human action was mundane. It was like preparing for a complex battle and finding the battlefield completely empty. Telvar made a decision. Prepare to withdraw. Commander, his first officer questioned. We haven't even attempted an attack. We can't attack what we don't understand, Telvar replied. The humans have created a strategic situation with no clear solution. Continuing to occupy this system costs resources and provides no benefit. Logically, withdrawal is the correct choice. But we haven't achieved our objective. Our objective was to conquer humanity. But humanity cannot be conquered through conventional military force because they refuse to engage with conventional military force. Further attempts would be illogical. The Kelverite fleet left the Sol system 2 days after arriving. Their official report concluded, species designation, human, threat level, undefined. Recommendation, avoid future contact. Reasoning, strategically incomprehensible behavior makes prediction impossible. Military engagement inadvisable. On Earth, people barely noticed they had left. Across the galaxy, the reaction was different. 2 major military powers had declared war on humanity. Both had withdrawn without fighting. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. 47 species gathered to discuss what humanity meant for galactic politics. They've created a new form of defense, one representative said. Not weapons, not shields, just themselves. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood before the council once again. We didn't create anything new, he said. We just refused to participate in the game other species wanted to play. War requires both sides to agree that war is happening. We declined to agree. But what if someone attacks you without warning? Another alien asked. What if they don't give you time to deploy your psychological tactics? Then we'll deal with it, Hyunwoo said simply. Humans are good at adapting. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and reality television. We'll figure something out. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Earth was declared a level 9 diplomatic hazard.